Welcome to the Financial Flossing podcast with Ross Brannan, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. Ross Brannan is a financial advisor who knows it's not just about your teeth. He helps dental practice owners protect and maximize today's cash flow to plan for tomorrow's cash needs. Find him at rossbrannan.com. On the show, he brings together experts to help dental professionals looking to make smart money decisions to grow their income, turn their retirement goals into reality, and improve their lives. And now, here's your host, Ross Brannan.
Welcome to the show. My guest today is Susan Leckowicz. Susan is the owner and founder of dentalcoaches.com, where she coaches dentists and teams on growth and profitability. She has a very interesting story and an awesome track record. I am excited to get into this one. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us your background. You're one of these lifelong dental people.
Yes, I grew up in a family where the dad, who was very passionate about dentistry, he loved treating people. He loved the artistry of it. I grew up as a kid with dentures boiling on our stove in our kitchen. He did his own lab work, and he just thought everyone should go into dentistry. It was a really wonderful profession. And I think my dad loved dentistry because my dad loved to eat. And he would talk about, what are you going to do if you don't have your teeth and you can't eat? So, he really influenced me to go into hygiene.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Susan, you're going to dentistry. I don't care what you do. So you started working for him, right?
I did. I was a dental assistant when I was a teenager, went to dental hygiene school, worked for him as a hygienist. I have two brothers that are dentists. One's a prosthodontist. One bought his business. The other one bought his building. So my family is kind of wrapped in dentistry.
Oh, wow. So you were a hygienist for how many years now?
About 20 years. I worked in a couple different offices, and I had a really great experience working in these offices because these doctors were really growth-minded doctors, and I was starting to get coached by different coaches in the industry, and I really enjoyed that part of it.
And so was it a situation where you'd seen so much in dentistry, you'd seen your father do really well, you'd seen your brothers do it, you had been a hygienist, you'd worked for different offices, you'd seen good doctors, and then you probably saw some bad doctors as well, and you're like, golly, I may not have a dental degree, but I think I could teach these docs what the heck to do and do it better.
Yeah, I believe so. And I really was looking for a way to have a bigger impact and to help more people and to be able to work with people who wanted to set goals, who wanted to challenge themselves, who wanted to have a bigger impact in their practices with, really creating great dental experiences for patients. So I wanted something a little different, wanted, more of a challenge.
So you started Dental Coaches. Talk about that evolution a little bit.
So I started Dental Coaches in 2017, and when I worked as a coach for another company, I quickly learned that one person can't know everything in a dental office. So I created a company where I could bring in other people to help coach my practices on different aspects of the business. So I have a leadership coach. I have a coach who works primarily with practice administrators and office managers on, the inner workings of everything that happens at that front desk. I have a hygiene specialty coach. So I have a marketing specialty coach, a financial specialty coach. I have people on my team who can really support the office in many, many ways.
And so one of the focuses, it seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, on Dental Coaches is you really want to focus on profitability inside the practice, because I think there's a lot of practices, they may bring a lot of revenue in, but they don't actually see it all at the bottom line or in the doctor's pocket. So talk a little bit about the growth model you have.
So I like to take a look at the practice with dental intelligence, an analytic software. And if a practice can't sync with that, we work with different Google Sheets and ways to kind of track KPIs. And we look at production per hour for each of the providers. So we look at for any of the doctors working in the practice, any of the hygienists, and we start to set goals on growing their production per hour to the average doctor doctor in the US produces around $400 an hour, we work to get them $300 an hour or more in a course of over a year.
So they're at 400 on average. You're trying to get them to 700.
Right.
How many people actually track production per hour? How many dentists, like before they meet with you, do they even have an idea what their production per hour is?
Not usually. It's pretty surprising. They might say, well, our daily goal is this, or our monthly goal is this. And they don't really get granular with it because they, they could have good months, bad months, big months, small months. It averaged out this week. And I like to look at, how can we get really clear on a daily basis? How many patient hours are we working? What's our goal per hour? How do we schedule that? And how do we hit it consistently? And how do we get the team focused on it? Because I think so many times a doctor will set a goal and go, oh, our goal this month is $80,000. Oh, we're at 60,000 midway through the month. Oh, we're never going to make the goal. And there's kind of the whole team just loses momentum. So
you've got, the average is 400. Yep. Your goal is to get people to 700, but you've got some clients that are doing how high now?
1,700 an hour. So
that's amazing. Now tell me this. So if I'm the doctor and my goal is $80,000 a month, like you just talked about, how hard is it to get my employees to buy in on that when they see no fruit from that goal? Or do you have to incentivize the staff to kind of join with you in that? Because what's their motivation if all the profit goes to me?
Right. Well, the way I like to introduce this to the team is that, the doctor's usually hiring a coach to help the practice grow personally and professionally and help each team member grow personally and professionally. And what I'll say to the doctors is, okay, if we're going to create new systems, ask the team to get more focused. And I truly believe that the dollars and the production is a reflection on how healthy we're getting our patients. It's not about the money. It's about how healthy are we getting our patients? How are we coming to work and being really efficient and focused? And how do we work better as a team? And I'll say to the doctors, how are we going to celebrate with this team? So depending on their level of profitability, we're either going to create just a simple bonus or a simple celebration at the end of the month, or we're going to set a daily production-based incentive program that celebrates every single day we're over that goal. And if we're hitting that incentive, 50% of the time in a month, the goal's going up because the goal should be a stretch. So usually what's happening is they're more productive. And if their collection process is accurate, right? If they're collecting 98% or more of what they're producing, they're going to be more profitable and they're willing to share, some of that with the team. So it has to be a win-win for both sides. You're right. Yeah. We have to find a way to, verbally celebrate and I think financially reward too, the team.
Now you talk about KPIs a lot. What KPI, and the acronym KPI, key performance indicators, thrown around all the time. What KPIs are you looking at? Which KPIs do you see as the most important?
So I like to look at production per hour, and I also like to look at how much treatment is getting diagnosed. So the diagnostic percentage, how many patients are we diagnosing treatment to? I like to look at the case acceptance percentage, how many patients are saying yes, and how much of the dollars of that diagnosed treatment is getting scheduled.
So this is where I had my first cavity at 35 years old, and I've only had it was actually 2 cavities at the same time, and I'm still bitter about it today. And I've only had 2 cavities in my entire life. I'm 45 now. I got them 10 years ago. It took me 35 years to get a cavity. So I'm pretty maniacal about my teeth. Every time I go to the dentist, like, oh, your teeth are beautiful. So when you talk about diagnosing treatment, I don't have teeth problems. So talk, I'm sure our listeners all know what you're talking about, but this is my podcast, so I can ask the questions for me. It's kind of being selfish here. When you say diagnosing treatment, give me some examples of what those are and that you're talking about.
Well, I don't believe in diagnosing treatment that's not absolutely necessary, right? It's not about finding work to do on someone who may be relatively healthy like you. But what I like to look at is how do we think of a patient's entire lifespan, and how do we look at what are their risk factors for dental disease? What are their risk factors for dental decay? What type of functional wear problems they might have on their teeth? Are they, how are we helping this patient grow old with the teeth that they have, or how do we get away from, oh, well, Ross, you've got a older filling here and we're just going to watch it until it breaks down. We're going to do something like that. So I like to think about how do we help patients understand the importance of being comprehensive with their care and how important their oral health is to their physical health.
As well as maybe being proactive in something like, hey, you're grinding your teeth. Well, instead of waiting till those teeth are much worse, let's address the issue now.
Right. Be more preventative than, proactive than reactive, right? So yeah, everyone has their own treatment philosophy, right? You can line up 20 dentists and they could all have different treatment plans for the same patient. So we work with clients with where they're comfortable, but we also kind of work with how do we help the doctor and get the team to support the treatment that's really in the best interest for the patient. So I've developed what I call a case agreement system. How do we get patients to agree to treatment versus how do we get them to accept it? Like, you have to accept this, right? How do we get them to understand it? And how do we have different financial options so we can help them put it into their budget and their schedule? So
let's talk about the difference between acceptance and agreements. When I hear that, what I hear is I'm accepting my punishment versus I'm agreeing to do something that I willingly want to do. Right. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah.
And when I'm agreeing to do something, I'm more willing to give you money versus accepting, bill my insurance and maybe I'll pay you the rest.
Or you're agreeing and you're more likely to show up for your appointment, right? And not like call and say, oh, I don't feel good today, I'm not coming in, or to say, well, I'm just going to say yes now because they're pressuring me, but I'll tell them I had a work meeting come up, and I'll cancel that appointment for next week. So, it's really, I think, deepening that relationship a little bit more. And, I've created a tool that's a financial agreement tool that teams use to help show a patient their different options for paying for care. So this tool has been a really good thing for patients to actually physically sign and agree to, right? So it can be very powerful, right? To sign a document saying, yes, this is how I'm going to pay for it versus, okay, we're going to bill your insurance and then we'll bill you for the rest. I like to not have to chase the money, I like to have the patient.
So they're agreeing to, hey, let's suppose the treatment is $2,000. Your insurance is going to cover $500 of it. You're responsible for $1,500. You're going to get a payment plan of $100 a month for 15 months, or you're going to do care credit or whatever. And, yada, 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 something like that kind of.
Yeah. And I like to have the patient really have a little skin in the game. So we're asking them to put money down at time of scheduling. In order to reserve time in doctor's schedule, Ross, we request that you pay half of your portion, today, and then the second half at your first visit. So if you want to spread out payments over time, we work with Care Credit for patients with healthy credit scores. And we have these other options that have high approval ratings. We can work with any budget. How much a month could you afford? So we consider lowering the barrier to care, right? There should be no barrier to care. Money shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to work with people, but I don't believe the practice should really be the bank unless they're maybe doing Invisalign or unless they've got a really good, clear guidelines, credit cards on file, a real good process for that. What I pride myself on and my team prides themselves on is really individualizing what we do. We don't have a cookie cutter approach. We don't, we customize this financial agreement form for every team. We customize their goals. We customize their training. We work with the clients, more on an individual basis than watch these videos and here you go. Here's the paperwork, right. Video, go do it. I don't work that way.
Who are the typical people that, benefit from working with you the most? What's the kind of target dental demographic of a dentist? Where are they at in their career? What are their challenges where they would benefit the most from dentalcoaches.com?
So I work with a lot of doctors who feel kind of stuck. They feel like they've plateaued. They feel like they're not growing, and they're looking for ways to create better systems in their office. They're looking for ways to really work smarter and not harder. I'm also working with a lot of doctors that are saying, you know what, I want to bring in an associate. I want to grow. I want to be able to really expand my patient base, expand my team. I work with some people in the startup phase, not a lot, but I do help people, who are just kind of getting started with their career. But mid-career is usually the majority of the clients that we work with.
And what are the results, the typical results that people, when they work with you, like how long until they start seeing results, and what are the results typically?
So I see either anywhere from a 10% to a 40% increase in collections with clients.
And approximately how long?
Well, in 9 to 12 months. So, my coaching goes month to month. I ask a client, give me 90 days, but after that, it goes month to month. And we really get very focused right away on what we're diagnosing, what we're getting scheduled, and what we're collecting. So my clients see an increase pretty much, within 4, 5, 6 months. So it's not a long startup part of it. So
I talk about this continuum, what I call a continuum of kind of opposite extremes in the dental world. You have on one side, you have dentists who basically own a job. Now it's a good job, but you own a job. And then you have on the opposite side, you've got dentists who are business owners. They only work a couple days a week. They make in the 7 figures of income a year. And then you got everybody in between. There's no right or wrong no right or wrong spot on the continuum. It depends on what you want and what you want to do. And obviously owning a business is a skill set some people kind of have naturally. Others have to kind of learn it and be taught it and coached it. But how much of the challenge that you see is a little bit of a mindset shift from, they may not realize they're owning a job, but they have to kind of shift to business owner. How much of that is what you see is a mindset shift?
Well, a lot of it, right? I think a lot of it. And I think it's important to kind of understand your strengths and ask for help when you need it, right? A lot of these doctors are really great with patients, really great, one-on-one. I have people that I work with that help the dentists with really taking a deeper dive into the financials and the profitability and the budgeting of the practice so that, I want to buy, new CEREC machine. Okay. When can you afford that? Or I want to add an associate. What does that look like? So I think it's important to think about where your own strengths are, and then figure out who you can get on your team to help support you, whether it's a, fractional CFO, whether it's a coach like myself, whether it's a marketing company. I think all of these different pieces work really well together. And, I've created resources and found resources for my clients to help in those areas. So it's a lot of fun. We have an annual meeting where we all get together. I have a monthly Zoom call with the clients. So we've created a community where everybody supports each other as well. So it's nice.
What do you see as the biggest challenge that most dentists face?
Right now, it's a lot of it's with teams, right? I've never in my coaching career seen so much turmoil in offices with, attracting the right team members, creating the right culture. So right now, I think it's with teams, and I think it's also with getting people to kind of rally around a goal and a purpose, right? So we have to really talk about, what is our dentistry doing? Let's read our Google reviews. Let's talk about our patient experience. What is really important to us as an office? Then how do we get really focused on what we're doing and support each other? And then how do we measure that success, and how do we compensate well?
Are you seeing hiring team members as one of the biggest challenges right now?
I think one of them is hiring and keeping, maintaining good team members.
I know a dentist who had talked about offering some benefits, but just never got around to it for whatever reason. And they had a couple valuable team members leave just because they were frustrated by that. And so,
Well, and it's happening in a lot of industries, right? In our country, where people, everyone's looking for good talent, right? And how do we keep people happy and working, in our business? And I'm working with a company where we do a lot of work on communication, on communication as a team, a communication on how we talk with our patients, and, looking at how do we create that really strong culture so people want to be there, want to be part of these teams. And a lot of my teams many of them have been in the practice a long time. So, but I think with dentistry right now, I think dentistry is pretty recession proof. People will still go to the dentist. People still value their health. So when people say, "Oh, there's a recession coming," I don't buy into that.
There's always a recession coming. Yeah. It's a business cycle.
Right. So
just stop fear mongering, doom and glooming.
Right.
By the time we're there, by the time we're in a recession, it's already over.
Right.
But that clickbait of doom and gloom sells. So if you had to give one piece of advice to the average dentist, what do you think the most valuable advice you could give to someone who's a dentist is right now?
I'd say get really clear on what you want in your practice, for the next 1 to 5 years. Get really clear with your team and with, expectations, job descriptions, and a plan. How are we going to get there? And I think people who are high performers want to work with other high performers. And, that's what you want to surround yourself with. Surround yourself with people that are really going to help you serve your patients well and really change lives.
Well, and if you implement the things you're talking about and you grow the way you're talking about growing, I mean, it's just going to be so much better. Like if you're trying to sell your practice, it's going to help increase the value of the sale. And if you're not trying to sell your practice, or maybe you were considering selling your practice, when all of a sudden you realize how much revenue you have coming in, and maybe you're not working as hard, you realize, well, maybe I don't want to, or maybe I shouldn't sell my practice, which I know you and I have lots of opinions on. We're going to stay off that topic right now for this podcast. But
it's nice to be a choice, right? How much do I want to work? Do I want to cut back? What do I want to cut out some certain insurance plans that aren't, that have huge write-offs? So I work with a lot of doctors on eliminating their dependence on PPO plans. And
yeah, I mean, the insurance world is the game of reducing payouts every year. So I think you got to make sure you're limited in your exposure there.
Yeah.
So Susan, if someone wanted to get in touch with you and talk with you more about what working with you looks like, how do they do that?
So my email address is susan@dentalcoaches.com, and I'll even give you my cell number. It's 860-657-6693.
Say it one more time.
860-657-6693.
And that's Susan, SUSAN, at dentalcoaches.com.
Yes.
And so they can reach out to you, just have a conversation, you can tell them what the process of what it's like working together, hear what their story is, see how you can help them, because you likely can, and see if they're willing to commit the effort and the resources to doing so.
Yeah, happy to do a free coaching call and to, learn more about.
Yeah.
Well,
Susan, this has been an interesting, fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, I've enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannon.
This has been another episode of Financial Flossing with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. For more on Ross Brannon, visit rossbrannon.com.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by PAS, Guardian, or North Florida Financial, and opinions stated are their own. External sites and materials are provided for your convenience in locating related information and services. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees expressly disclaim any responsibility for and do not maintain, control, recommend, or endorse third-party sites, organizations, products, or services, and make no representation as to the completeness, suitability, or quality thereof. Ross is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS, OSJ 3664, Coolidge Court, Tallahassee, Florida 32311, 850-562-9075. Securities product and advisory services offered through PAS. Member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian. New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. North Florida Financial is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Arkansas Insurance License number 1613932. California Insurance License 0L10073 2023-150073 expires 125.